It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Hello, and welcome to Accelerate. I'm excited to talk with my guest today. Joining me is Gerard Adams, also known as the Millennial Mentor. He's a thought leader, serial entrepreneur, angel investor, and philanthropist whose stated purpose is to inspire other millennials to leverage their passions for success and create the lifestyle they dream of. Now, there continues to be incredible amounts of talk and writing about the millennial generation, how to work with them, how to manage them, and the general tenor of much of what's written is somehow that millennials have to be handled with kid gloves, that their egos and psyches are fragile and that special accommodations have to be made for them. And yet here is a generation that seems committed to change, innovation, and questioning for the better why things have to work the way they do. And interestingly, most often they run up against baby boomers who are also defined by they're challenging the existing order and triggering the innovation that define their lives. So what do millennials want and how can they achieve these personal career goals? And if you're part of a previous generation, how does it affect how you motivate, collaborate, and work with millennials to achieve your goals? And my guest today, Gerard Adams, is going to help shine some light and help us sort it all out. So Gerard, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
So take a minute, introduce yourself. How did you get your start in business? And, give us a little bit of your journey in terms of your entrepreneurial background.
Sure. Well, entrepreneur for 13 years now. It's unbelievable how time has flown by.
So you started when you were a teenager, basically.
Yeah, I did. I basically, I feel like, growing up where I grew up, I kind of was instilled entrepreneur values at a very young age. I didn't grow up with a lot of money. I had to kind of, learn how to fend for myself. I started off basically in middle school, really, where I started, getting Echo T-shirts that my friends all wanted and finding a connection from a friend who his father worked for the factory and we were able to get them at wholesale, but I wasn't able to afford a lot. And then I would sell them, for better price to school. And then that grew into a passion for cars. I was very into like hooking up cars and kind of help getting different kids that were into that, different car parts. And then that continued to just grow on to other small side, hustles in high school and getting a real job too. I ended up working in a supermarket as a cashier, then produce and things like that. My mother worked at a supermarket. I did whatever I could to make money and to help the family. And then my parents really were adamant about me going to college and getting a good education in order for me to become successful. And they told me that was really the path I should take. And I really wanted to make them proud. So I did attend college, apply. And my father wanted me to go to Princeton, believe it or not, but I really wasn't the smartest student in school. I really was more like a BC student. So I couldn't get into Princeton, got into a local university, called Colwell College, actually. And then after my first semester, I really just didn't feel like it was for me. I felt that the system was flawed. I felt like I was starting to accumulate debt, and they were telling me what classes to take. I couldn't get into the classes that I wanted to for a major that I wanted to learn about business and how to start a business. And I quickly decided that by the end of my first semester that I wanted to take a risk of being an entrepreneur and self-educate myself and finding a mentor. And my parents were really against it, so it put a lot of pressure on me. But I took that risk at a really early age, and I started my first business probably around when I was like 19 years old.
So interesting. We talked about mentorship, so that's really unusual, I think, for people that are starting out to serve that first thought saying, I need a mentor to help me get into that. And I see that sort of increasingly a little bit with millennials, and I want to get into that a little bit later. But who'd you seek out? I mean, who helped you?
I agree. And I think that mentorship is probably the most important, was the most valuable asset like in my life to get to where I am today. Like having somebody that I could learn from real life experience, because I didn't relate to books as much. I wanted to like really learn from actually doing something and learning from real life experience. And that was like the way that I was better at learning.
So who'd you choose? Who was your mentor?
So I ended up, believe it or not, it took me some time to find him. It wasn't like I just dropped that and went out and was able to get the mentor. I decided my first move was, well, what am I really interested in? So that I could find the mentor of what I'm truly, truly interested in. And I was interested in learning how to invest in small companies that were trying to become the next Apples of the world, the next Coca-Colas of the world. And I wanted to learn about those type of companies and how to trade them and invest into them. So I started an online community called StockSpot, and I saw that there was a niche in the market where there's a lot of forums at the times and chat rooms. And I wanted to create a forum, but I wanted to add a rating system similar to an eBay or an Amazon model. And every member would have 1 to 5 stars, color coordinated. And I created this, and I just, basically, through unique marketing strategies, did the best I could to build this community to use my platform. And then therefore I would be able to find multiple mentors through this online platform, because then I would know who's 4 and 5 star members, who the people are the gurus at investing in these companies and why. So that I kind of went about it in a unique way. I created this online community to kind of find the mentors, to have them come to me and then be able to use my platform as a way to discuss their investments with other people. And therefore I would kind of be able to leverage the platform to learn from multiple people. And then from that platform, I got about 10,000 initial people to sign up.
Wow.
Which was a lot back then.
Yeah.
Now it's got to be like millions.
Especially if you were using it to learn yourself, right? I mean, it was like you were just providing the platform and the forum for everybody else to learn.
Correct. And I think that all great innovation and great products stem from creating something of value that you're looking for in your life, or a problem that you're looking to solve. I'm sure you've heard that before, and I truly have lived it. Most of my success or the startups that I've gotten involved with, or the exits that I've had, have been from starting from an idea of something that I just was looking for in the market, something that I was just, really looking for, or I was passionate about something, and I analyzed the market and I said, okay, how can I differentiate myself in this marketplace? And that's what I did initially. And it then led me to not only learning from this online community of 10,000 people that were day in and day out chatting, but then one day getting a phone call from a local nanotechnology company that was reinventing the battery. And I was like, this is super cool. When I spoke to them, I was like, why are we still charging our cell phones 2-3 times a day? Battery technology hasn't really evolved as quickly as, a lot of other technologies today. And the CEO was on the call. His name is Ron Durando. And when he realized how young I was and what I created, he was like, I just want to get some exposure. How do I advertise with you to get in front of your investment community? I didn't realize that there was a way to monetize at that point through advertising, because I had created this really just to build a community.
Right.
And he was like, when he realized how young I was, he was like, I want you to come to my office because I don't think you understand the value of what you've created. And he actually became my first business mentor. And when I met with him, he was like, you've done something amazing. But I don't think you realize you don't really know too much about investor relations or public relations, what it means to be a small cap publicly traded company. And if you want, because back then the way that these companies would raise money or would advertise would be in a very traditional means. They would do direct mails. They would go on road shows. They were looking for unique ways to use digital media as a way to get exposure for these companies. So he was like, come in and help me build out my digital marketing strategy, help me build my website out, my video marketing, different unique, getting written up on different online magazines and running PPC campaigns to help him build his own, email list to email information about the company, just things like that. So I was extremely excited. And he said, I'm going to teach you about this industry. And he became my first real mentor. But I must say, though, that the first mentors that I've ever had in my entire life, I do owe it all to my mother and father. Seeing them work 7 days a week, it's my father instilling leadership at a very young age, and integrity and certain values. My mother, seeing her having to work those 7 days a week to help provide for the family, and hear her stories of what she had to do to drop out of high school just to help my grandparents provide for her sisters and brothers. I mean, there's so much that from my upbringing that also has been a huge mentorship to me.
So and a great story. So let's talk about millennials, because since this is your area, you're mentoring a lot of millennials. So first question is in general, do you think millennials are more entrepreneurial than previous generations, or are they more risk averse?
I think we are more entrepreneurial. I think this is the most entrepreneurial generation in history, and I think it's being caused by the fact that we were pretty much forced to become entrepreneurs, and I lived through this. I'm on the upper echelon of this millennial generation. I was born in '84. I think it starts about 1980. But when I started becoming an entrepreneur, okay, it was not the cool thing to do. In fact, I was very much hated on and put down, basically saying you're a college dropout. Every one of my friends were going to college to get their degree to become successful. And it was very much the unconventional path, which it still is today. But then, like, people didn't even really talk about being an entrepreneur. Now today it's like everybody thinks it's the cool thing to do. In a way, like it's very, very much common. Now you're starting to even see universities and schools have entrepreneurship classes. But I think what had happened was through 2008, 2010, when we had that economic recession, which again I lived through. Built as a young entrepreneur because I had built that online community. I got into investor relations. I got into small cap companies and understanding the marketplace, the economy. And then all of a sudden, everything changed for me. The business changed for me. The industry changed for me. The economy changed. And during that same time period, I saw all my friends graduating from college now during that time, and they couldn't get jobs. And it was very much, I saw this like, shift in the way that we all thought in our thinking, in our mindset, that was pretty much we had to start becoming more resourceful. We had to start thinking how can we become entrepreneurs, and a lot of my friends ended up having to be forced to become entrepreneurs, believe it or not, because they couldn't get work.
Yeah, or there was just my kids are in that generation. It's a series of part-time jobs instead of one full-time job, right?
Correct. And I think that was kind of the core of what made us to be the most entrepreneurial generation. I think it was that. And then us not trusting these big institutions that lied to us. And, we grew up being fed so much advertisements on television. And a lot has just changed in a short period of time from our parents' generation.
Yeah. Well, I think even your parents went through some of that. Certainly, I did, as I'm a generation ahead of you at least. I went through the whole transition myself as well, where, my parents' generation, they were sort of aghast that I worked for 8 different venture funded startup companies before starting my own company. And they were sort of aghast at this because it's like, you need the security of the big companies. Right. But it really turned out that really the big companies were as risky as the small companies. And that was really a big change, as you talked about. I mean, it was no longer you could go work at a big company and assume that you could be there for 30 years. You are as vulnerable there as anywhere else.
Yeah. I mean, my father is a testament to that. I mean, he worked for Prudential for probably close to 30 years. And then when that happened in 2010, he got laid off. It had a big impact on my family.
Yeah.
And Prudential's like, what do they got, $1 trillion in assets? So I agree. They're just as risky. Believe it or not, they're looking for now. There's the term intrapreneur. They're like a lot of these big companies now are looking for these intrapreneurs, which I think is very interesting as well. Yeah.
So back to millennials, just on a couple of points. One is, then do you think the generation is more adaptable, perhaps, than previous generations, given sort of this turmoil coming of age, during the Great Recession of 2008, 2010?
Are we more adaptable?
Yeah, to change.
I mean. I think we are. I think it's almost, too much in a way, because we're constantly. I think we do live in a generation where we change our minds, so quickly. We've gotten used to kind of everything happening so quickly for us. Now it's like everything with a click of a button. We want everything very, now you got Ubers of the world where cars can show up in 2 minutes. The way that we communicate and everything is so quickly now. So we're constantly adapting, almost to the point where, I think there's a lack of like longevity with our focus.
A lack of patience, perhaps.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was just going to say patience.
Great minds think alike. Well, yeah, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, though, I want to talk about some of the fears that you see millennials having, because they sort of come up in your writing, and I just want to see if they're generalized, and then we'll get into some of their unique strengths. So come back right after the break. Joining me is my guest, Gerard Adams. We're talking about millennials, and we'll be right back. Hi, this is Andy. Connect and Sell is used by sales reps at nearly 1,000 companies, including hundreds of technology startups and several Fortune 500 companies, to overcome the challenges of getting prospects on the phone. Companies using Connect and Sell grow their revenues faster by enabling their sales reps to have more sales conversations in 90 minutes than they could otherwise achieve in an entire week. Connect and Sell can be deployed directly to your sales reps, or you can take advantage of their outbound on-demand service, which delivers qualified prospect meetings scheduled directly on your sales reps' calendars. Visit connectandsell.com to learn more about how Connect and Sell can start filling your pipeline today. So, welcome back to Accelerate with my guest today, Gerard Adams, the Millennial Mentor. And we were just talking about millennials and some of their strengths. And one of the fears I see, maybe a common fears we see in millennials, because I think it's important to understand strengths and weaknesses of a generation, is on one hand, we say they're sort of less afraid of failing, but I sort of sense sometimes in your writing, and you referred to it earlier, is that maybe more sensitivity to what other people think. Do you find that to be the true?
Absolutely. A sense of, I think our generation, I talk about this, because of the Instagram and Facebook and everything, like we care so much of what people think of us. The fear of being judged is just is a huge thing for our generation, and I think that we do need to let go. I say it all the time that you got to let go of those like insecurities. You have to be authentic. You can't have the fear of what people are going to think of you. You got to just be true to yourself, and understand that not everybody's going to like you. Everyone's going to have an opinion. I've dealt with it my whole life. I had haters my whole life, and people. You have to understand your ego. People have egos as well. You're going to be judged one way or another, and you got to just keep staying true to yourself. Be authentic. Have faith in yourself and what you believe in, and then just keep pushing forward, and know that you're not going to make everybody like you.
Yeah, well, I think your parents' generation, which unfortunately I'm probably part of that, are probably somewhat to blame for that, because your generation in school was really the first one that was sort of submitted to what I call the whole self-esteem curriculum, and stressing the importance of self-esteem. It seems like some of that sort of comes out on this other end with being so sensitive to what other people think about you.
Correct. Yeah, I definitely. Say that it definitely stems from our parents too. But, I do think that it's more, I think it grew more from social media as well. The sense that you have to our generation is putting up pictures to have that sense of significance. And I think losing touch with themselves.
Right. Well, so one last question on this side, and then I want to jump into sort of uniqueness the millennials bring to businesses. Are millennials more status oriented than previous generations? Are they more egalitarian or less so? I mean, the importance you sort of talked about, the fact that you weren't able to go to the best school, and that maybe there was some people sort of hating on you because you didn't go to Princeton or whatever. I mean, is that more pronounced in this generation or less pronounced, or just the same?
It's a good question. I think when it comes to I think it's when you think about it from an educational standpoint. I think now it's not. It's not. You're not as judged because we've been so entrepreneurial. We've seen so many. We've had a lot of success stories that necessarily are not having to come and graduate from Princeton or Harvard.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that you do see a lot more, a lot being judged from like your digital. I think your digital footprint more than anything nowadays.
Got it.
More than a degree. I think because now you can use technology and social media and the internet to kind of build yourself into being a social celebrity, some sort. You can build business from it. You can build, you can really. I've seen so many people become, some of these millennials got a bigger following, from YouTube than like a, George Clooney, like, or an actor, like a Tom Cruise,
Right.
So I do think that the social footprint, the digital footprint, is something that we very much, analyze and take into consideration.
Which is sort of an interesting thing, because one of the things that we talk a lot about in the sales world is the importance of developing a great digital footprint. Let's say if you're a sales rep, because it's oftentimes the first impression or the first perception that a prospective buyer develops about you is looking at your LinkedIn profile and maybe what you're sharing on Twitter and so on. And yet there seems to be a real reluctance, even though this is a very social media oriented generation, among millennial sales reps to really fill out that profile, to really have to freely share. And I think some of this sort of stems back to what you said before about afraid of being judged, right? I'm going to be judged on what I share, which is, that's really what you want to have happen. You have to be successful, you have to be able to open yourself up to the judgment from other people.
Yeah, 100%. And I somewhat dealt with this myself. I for so long, I never looked at myself as I never did personal branding for a very long time. I focused on my businesses, and I wanted to put my businesses first and, make sure that I focus on the branding of the business. And just this past year, I started, more so focusing on my personal brand. And it's brought so much opportunity by being able to put out good quality content, being a little more active on social media, interacting with people and doing podcasts like this, and providing value and getting out there. I think that the more that you do that, you're gonna, you're gonna be judged 100%. I'm sure everybody listening right now is not gonna, they may not like what I'm saying, but at the end of the day, if you just keep doing that and you keep getting out there, providing value, putting out good content, building out your personal brand, you will see more opportunities come your way.
Yeah, and you have to be able to release that whole idea of being judged. I mean, doing a podcast. I know from writing a book. I mean, I first book I wrote, I was incredibly fearful about releasing it because this whole thing about worrying about what people think about you. And once you sort of get accustomed to sharing what you think and what you believe, you start getting over that.
Yes, for sure. Absolutely.
It really becomes a habit, and it's really important for everybody to embrace. You said, with the personal branding and it's.
I think the hard part about it is it becomes almost like a full-time job. I just think it is difficult keeping up with. There's so many different social platforms. There's so many different ways of building out your content and putting out content. I mean, it becomes another job, and that's part of why it's a little bit tough. But if you can build it into your routine, build it into a habit, and it doesn't necessarily have to start off with you have to do it like every single, putting out, pictures and content and doing things every day, but it's just consistency, trying to be consistent and trying to build that into your routine and get it out as much as possible, on a weekly basis. You really will see the gains from it.
Well, I think also if you look at it from the perspective of something you do as part of your entire career, right? I mean, one thing that's so great about makes me wish in many respects that I could start over in this generation and start my career over, is that you can build up a lifetime of sort of thought leadership, if you will, even within your own sphere, about who you are and what you stand for. And it doesn't all have to be original content, as I advise people I work with. Share. What's out there that you see, that you find, and there's all these tools that are available to help you find this content. Share something that says what you stand for, what you believe in. And so maybe it's a mix of creating some unique stuff. But if you do this for 5, 10, 15 years, you look back, you stand for something. And people who are going to employ you, either as an employee, people want to invest in you, people want to work with you, they understand what you stand for.
For sure. I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah. It's a unique opportunity that people really need to...
Another perspective about, on it also is that if you think about it, like my great-grandparents, in order for me to know what they've kind of done in this world, I mean, I have to go through the chain about talking to my parents or my grandparents, and unfortunately, my grandparents had passed away at a very young age. It was tough, because I was so close to my grandmother. She ended up dying of cancer, and that was tough for me because she was the closest grandparent I had. And it's hard for me to get those stories or to know like kind of what they've done. And then, I know there's ancestry.com, but really you have to kind of get the stories kind of the old school way. We're kind of like this first generation with this, like, again, this social digital footprint where like my kids, when they may look this stuff up and see like, what did I stand for? What did I really, are there articles that I've written that they can now read, rather than like, I have, maybe one, handwritten letter that I have with my grandmother. I wish I had more.
Right.
And we're this first generation where like everything now is kind of, building, history through this digital, social footprint that like our grandkids, kids will one day be able to see what did we stand for, what did we leave behind, and I think that we should leverage that. Well,
and for better or for worse, it doesn't go away.
Yeah. Right.
So this gets back to one of the points you made earlier, which to me is one of the key things in any sort of, in your personal life and in your business life. You talked about integrity. And at the end of the day, we all know people do business with people they know, like, and trust. Integrity is a huge part of that. And people are going to see through your body of work. Are you somebody they can trust? Are you somebody that's a person of integrity? All right, we're going to move into the last segment of the show with my guest, Gerard Adams. Got some questions I posed to all my guests. And the first one is a hypothetical scenario in which you're the star and you've just been hired as a new sales leader, new VP of sales at a company whose sales have stalled out. And my senior manager is really anxious to get things turned around in a hurry. If you're in this scenario, what 2 things could you do your first week on the job that could have the biggest impact?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is so generic, but for me, it's always been about like hustle, like do whatever I have to do to get out there and get leads, however I can. Whether that's like looking for leads, starting off with like LinkedIn, to then reaching out to like my whole network, to going to people within the organization and looking at like who are some past leads and understanding, what are the most effective ways to be able to get to get effective leads. Thinking outside the box. What can I do that's different? That may be able to help out. So what can I do to like look at a way to come up with a creative lead gen sales page that maybe I can drive traffic to. So I would think I would hustle, I would spend, the extra time there to show that, I'm dedicated, and I would think outside the box and do what I have to do to use different resources to get more leads.
Okay.
If that even means pounding the pavement, then I'd do that.
Excellent. Love it. Great answer. All right. Few final questions is when you're selling, when you, Gerard, are out selling, what's your most powerful sales attribute?
I think it's my confidence. I think being able to go into a room confidently has been and having charisma and being a good listener, I think have been probably the way that I've been able to close is deals. And I think one of the most important have been good storytelling. I think you have to be a good storyteller, whether you're selling your company and getting it acquired, like we did with Elite Daily, or just going to get your first sale. You better go in that room with confidence. You better be, a good storyteller, and you better be a good listener to understand what your client is going to really, how you can benefit them and what they're looking for.
Excellent. So who's been your business role model?
My business role model. It's interesting because I have a lot of people that I look up to. A couple people that have just mentors to me throughout my life. I love Gary Vee as somebody that relates to me as a hustler in media and in similar industries as me. So he's somebody I look up to. I look up to Mark Zuckerberg. Seeing what he's been able to create. But most of all, like I know that, and I think it's a pointer. You know that you yourself are different, and we all are unique, and we kind of, how are you going to be a person that puts a dent into this world yourself? And so for me, it's just like I like to always feel like I'm in competition with myself to be better every single day, so that I can leave my own legacy and be a good role model in the future.
Excellent. So, what's one book every aspiring entrepreneur should read?
I think, I could tell you one that helped me a lot, that resonated with me. That's more of a kind of it's more of a story. And then I think that starting off, I think everybody should read Think and Grow Rich.
Right, Napoleon Hill.
There's one book that I read that I related to. I think you should find somebody who you relate to and you want to understand their story. For me, it happened to be a guy by the name of Ryan Blair, and he had a book called Nothing to Lose, Everything to Gain. And that book just resonated with me a lot, seeing how he grew up, went from gang member to multimillionaire and helped build an empire. And he talks a lot about his failures. He talks a lot about his obstacles and mistakes. And for me, I like listening to people that it's not all about their success, but what happened that went wrong, because I think you can learn a lot from failure, not just success. So for me, nothing to lose, everything to gain was a big one.
Excellent. Okay. Tough question here. What music's on your playlist right now?
What music's on my playlist? Cool. I'm a big Jay-Z guy.
Yeah.
I gotta admit, I listened to the latest Kanye album that just hit iTunes, so I did listen to him. I love hip hop. What else? I do also like some EDM music. So I was listening to that latest song by Mike Posner. Believe it or not, it's a crazy name, so don't judge me. I think the name of the song is "I Took a Pill in Ibiza."
Well, if you're in the clubs, you probably did, yeah.
But it's a good song. You should definitely take a listen.
All right.
But those are on my playlist right now.
Okay. So last question is, what's the one question you get asked most frequently by millennials?
That's a good question. I get so many. How do I get started is a very common one.
Okay. Let's go with that one. So what's your answer?
My answer is, I think you can't try to perfect anything. I always say that the process becomes the plan. You can't try to have the perfect plan. You have to just, find, focus on something that you believe that is a value that you want to create, that you're passionate about, but just take action consistently. It's not about building extraordinary things. It's about doing ordinary things day in and day out and consistently.
Exactly.
And I think that, what I say to them is, just start doing. And even when you make mistakes, that's okay, because that means you're moving forward. And if you just keep moving forward, eventually you get into a rhythm and you'll really start to see the fruits of your work and your labor. But, it takes that day in, day out grind, and it's not going to happen overnight. And the faster that you just get taking action, the faster that one day you'll be able to look back at all that hard work and all those mistakes and obstacles and actually be able to appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a great quote I love from World War II era generals, U.S. generals, and it's attributed variously to Eisenhower, to General Patton, but it says, basically the tenor is, yeah, it's not, the one who wins this war is not the one with the best plan, it's the one who executes their plan the best. And just to what you said, yeah, it doesn't require perfection, it's just, are you going to be consistent, and are you going to execute it?
Correct.
So, great. Well, I want to thank you for joining me. My guest today, Gerard Adams. Gerard, tell folks how they can find out more about you.
Thank you, Andy. I just launched a new video series. It'll be on Facebook and on my YouTube channel, Gerard Adams TV. It's called Leaders Create Leaders, where I am flying all over the country, meeting with modern-day leaders, doing a day in the life with them, extracting their story, their lessons, their mentorship. So definitely check it out. Episode 3 just dropped with a day in the life with Lewis Howes, which is pretty cool. I got Gary V coming up next. And you can follow me on Instagram at Gerard Adams. Snapchat is Hello Gerard. And my Twitter is I am Gerard Adams. And my website is GerardAdamsTV.com.
Excellent, excellent. Well, again, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really enjoyed the conversation. And remember, friends, make it a part of your day every day to deliberately learn something new to help you accelerate your success. And an easy way to do that is to make this podcast accelerate, a part of your daily routine, whether on your commute, in the gym, or as make it part of your morning sales meeting, because then you'll make sure you don't miss any of my conversations with top business experts like my guest today, Gerard Adams, who shared his expertise about how to accelerate the growth of your business. So thanks for joining me, and until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone. Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.